Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap, brought to you by CrowCast, of course, and it's good to have you all with us. Joining me, as usual, is Macca. How you going, Mac?
Oh, very good, thanks, mate. We've had a win and Port have had their asses kicked, so it's a nice world at the moment.
It's better than last week.
Yep.
Yeah, and Nikki, how you going, Nick?
I've got a nice warm cup of tea, so I'm doing good.
Well, that's always good to hear. Did you, both of you, watch much of the footy this weekend?
I think I watched just about every game that's possible to be watched.
I watched little bits and pieces, but nothing today until I listened from halftime of the Port game driving home, and that was kind of amusing.
Yeah. Always amusing when Port lose. Anyway, let's hook right into it and get into the scores, shall we? I was just saying to you off air, Mac, that I've pretty much had a footy-free weekend, and I realised about an hour ago that included not putting in my footy tips this week.
Yeah, but you were on the bottom, though, weren't you?
No, not in the CrowCast one.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was the dream team.
That's the dream team. I was actually about 4 off the pace in the big one that I'm in, and
that was right, 4 off.
Completely forgot. Anyway. So I don't care about the results, but let's go through them anyway. And it started with Friday night, a bit of a boil over, Collingwood coming back from a few down, apparently, and getting up by a point over there. Collingwood 11-12-78 to West Coast 12-5-77. A bit of a classic.
Yeah, it was actually a first-class game to watch, and it was played by two teams that are both of a quality good enough to play in grand finals, and that's how this game was played. And, to Collingwood's credit, they have been down their form. They've only been on about 1 or 2 cylinders and playing 1 or 2 quarters here and there. But they went over there, and to beat Perth, West Coast at Perth, it takes a lot to beat Perth to them over there. And it was a classical game, and they just managed to sneak in by a very, very small margin at 1 point. Good game. Excellent game. First class.
There's a small problem for Collingwood, though, because Pendlebury's gone in for surgery on his finger. They're hopeful that he'll be back for finals.
He did something with his finger, and he played on with it. I saw them wrap it very primitively in some tape, but I didn't realise it was that serious, Nikki.
Yeah, no, he went in for surgery today.
Yeah, and I think he's done that before, hasn't he, that finger?
Yeah, he has. It's a re-injury, if you like.
Yeah. So not good news for them, but a very good win and keeps them around the mark in terms of top 4. So a win's a win, and a win over there is a very good win. Saturday, bloody Carlton. What the hell's going on, Macca? 9 goals, 15-69 to Sydney. 8 goals, 14-62. A margin of 7 points, and Carlton just marching up the ladder at the moment.
I know, and they're really shitting me. They are, but I have been warning for weeks that they are a lot better than they were playing early in the piece. And
yes,
when you look at the players they've had spread around amongst their team, and they're starting to gel a bit as a team now that Teague's in charge. I fear they're going to win another couple as well before the season's out. I'm sure they will.
Maybe us.
Well, who knows? We'll have to be on our, because they do have some quality players. Sydney, on the other hand, it doesn't take a lot to beat Sydney these days. They try very, very hard, but when you look at it, without Buddy up forward, they really don't have a proper forward line. Their midfield is getting old, and there's only 1 or 2 players in there that can. Parker's playing fantastically, but he's not getting a lot of support in the midfield. And defence not too bad, but they're a team that's rebuilding. And at this stage, Longmire, he's recommitted to the club, and he's got a fair job ahead of him, I reckon.
I think that was one of the stupidest decisions they made, was actually recommitting Longmire for a further 3 years. He's still got next year to run on his contract, so that's actually 4 years. He'll still be apparently in charge of Sydney, and we've seen this year that they're not rebuilding. They thought they were. They do like us. They try and keep in finals, etc. But as you pointed out, Macca, I started watching that game, and my God, it was just atrocious. I switched over to the Hawthorn Fremantle one because it was way better quality of football.
Well, you're quite right about that. It wasn't a good grade of football, but sadly, the better bits of football came from Carlton. So that's just why they won the game.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm a bit like you, Nick. I was very surprised that Sydney went so early on Longmire. And I wonder if that would have been a similar story had Stewie Dew still been sitting in the co-pilot seat. Because maybe it's more of an indication that they don't think there's anyone else that's any good around the place at the moment.
Well, I think North Melbourne made a concrete offer to him as well. So they had to either match it, beat it, or he may have well said, unless I get this or that, I'm going.
Well, he can't go. He's contracted.
Yeah, but they break contracts all over the place.
No. You can only break contract by mutual agreement unless he had some sort of an out clause. So Sydney could have just held him to his contract. It's not like players that can ask for trades and all that sort of stuff. Coaches have to see out their contracts unless there's a mutual agreement to terminate. And it makes me wonder why Sydney would have not just sat and held and made Longmire sit it out. So, but
there is a downside to that in the sense, and you're quite right. Legally, they can do that, and he has to stay there. But if you've got somebody who wants to go, and you're going to make him stay, you're not going to get the best out of him. So, and I think that's why, if he'd really pushed the issue, he could have done it. But anyhow, that's not to be. They've decided to keep him, and I think that'll be their problem in the long run.
Yep. Hawthorn also taking care of Fremantle. Fremantle starting to tail off a bit in the last month, a bit like us. Hawthorn 12-12, 84 to Freo 8-5, 53. They're a margin of 31 points.
Well, I did see an article where somebody said that Freo are now currently the second worst team in the competition. And if they took Nat Fyfe out of that particular team, that'd be pretty right. They don't have a lot else to get really inspired about. And I know they've got some injuries, but everybody's got some injuries, so that's not an excuse. And Hawthorn, I don't know how Clarkson does. He just somehow he gets them up to win enough games. But the problem with them, of course, they'll finish up, like Nicky said, around the middle of the ladder, and they won't get the hold of a real top draft pick.
I think Nicky's gone home. Oh, there she is.
No, I'm here. they're too fond of trading away any of the higher draft picks they get anyhow.
They said they're going to keep it this year, Nick.
Well, they have to, because they've traded out so many.
Of course, they have 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Although that rule gets bent.
It does
when it needs to, doesn't it?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Mostly if it's Geelong.
Yeah, that's right.
That game actually wasn't too bad because even though Freo didn't score so much at the start, they then got themselves back into the game. So they did show some fight, but it was down in Tasmania. I don't think anybody would have tipped Fremantle down there.
No,
the last time they won a game down there, it had to be on a Tuesday, which was after where we had Siren Gate.
Yeah. Yeah,
that's the only game they've ever won down in Tasmania, and they've played there quite a bit.
Yeah. They are tailing off a bit, though, and they'll have to get a wriggle on if they're going to keep in touch with any sort of reasonable finals chance, because there's a fair bunch of teams starting to line up, sort of 6 to 12, so teams want to be careful. Speaking of those teams, it was a battle between two of them, Essendon and North, and the Bombers getting up by 5 points in the end, 12-14, 86 to North, 12-9, 81.
Excellent game to watch because both of these sides are sides that can, on their day, trouble anybody. And North Melbourne, under that brilliant orator, Reece, they are playing damn good football. And Essendon, there's two things I really got out of the game that I think the Adelaide Football Club should have a very good look at. And the first one is Dylan Clark the tagger for Essendon. Cunnington, he's the driving force in the North Melbourne Football Club. He had 15 possessions, 3 kicks and 12 handballs. The 12 handballs were being grabbed and tackled by Clark every time. And Clark is a brilliant tagger because he doesn't do all the nasty, unnecessary stuff that anybody does. He just stands behind the player that he's going to tag. Yeah. And every time he gets possession of the ball, he just grabs him.
Yeah, a bit like Robert Shirley used to play like that.
And I thought it was a brilliant game from Clark and a big contribution towards Essendon winning. And the other factor was they had 2 players coming out of their defence, the one they picked from Gold Coast and the one that the Irishman, they've got massive speed, absolute massive speed. And once they get hold of the ball and they run full pace and kick the ball very, very quickly into the forward lines, it's really chaos balls, and Essendon scored a lot from those particular things. So there's 2 things. I think a full, hard tag, a good hard tag is definitely a necessity these days, as is pace as we move the ball in the forward line.
They do that chaos ball, but if they can if you can have a team that slows them down, then they're in trouble because they don't have any system apart from chaos. So that's the one downside for Essendon. It was actually more a great game from McDonald, Tip and Woody. He won them the game.
He was brilliant up forward, wasn't he?
Oh, absolutely. But he was the running back and forwards. As soon as you actually shut him out, Essendon absolutely struggle. And North, I tipped him, the bastards.
So did I.
and they missed so many easy set shots. They were absolutely controlling that game, and it's bad kicking is bad football. But the problem we've got for Essendon is Hurley's done his AC.
Yep. Sard and McKenna were the 2 players I was thinking of.
Yeah.
They'll miss him, Hurley.
Very much so, because Hooker was injured and was having so much trouble, and North didn't quite capitalise as well as they should have on that because they had to put Hooker onto Brown and he just couldn't go with him. But Brown was his normal, I'm going to run an entire cricket pitch length and then miss the ball.
Yes, they're going to be an interesting opponent next week, Essendon, but we'll get to that. Then, of course, we had St Kilda and Geelong. St Kilda staying in the game for a while. Geelong never really had it their own way, but by the same token, always looked as if they were going to win it 12-12-84 to the Saints 8-9-57.
Yeah, the one game I didn't see for the weekend, obviously for obvious reasons, watching Adelaide and the Gold Coast. So, but I think a good effort by St Kilda to finish as close to Geelong as that, but I still don't think it'll save the coach.
No, I don't think so either. And then today...
Nothing to say, didn't say it.
Thank you, Nikki. Today, Richmond carrying on their resurgence. 13, and what's going on with the Giants? Richmond 13-16-94, defeating the Giants 9-13-67. The Tigers by 27, and the Giants another team that seems to be just fading slightly for some reason. I don't think it's personnel. I don't know what it is. Leon Cameron maybe.
So it's more problem when Canelio does his knee and they haven't ruled out ACL.
Yeah.
I think was it about 5 minutes into the game, Macca?
Yeah. But unfortunately, he got a ducking because it happened right at the beginning of the game, and he came out very heavily bandaged. He was very heavily bandaged, and he played on last week. And I was curious and wondered what sort of injury it is to have your knee heavily bandaged, and then you start off like that. But when he did actually do the injury that forced him to come off, he was doing nothing. He was just taking it on his own, not contesting, just starting to take a run. Took one stride, and then he just couldn't put any weight back on it. And it does look like a serious injury. I slightly disagree with Finn about the personnel aspect of it, because Whitfield, who probably is just about the best player in the comp when he's on, he hasn't been around for a month. Kelly, he did his calf I think it was last week, and now we've got Canelio. He was unavailable this week. He was there, but he didn't play virtually. So I think if you took a Kelly and a Canelio out of any side, they'd struggle a little bit because they're probably two of the very, very classiest players in the competition. So
we're not talking about any side, though. We're talking about a team who's had 348 first-round picks in their short life. So you'd think they'd have a bit of depth, wouldn't you?
You'd think so. The other thing, but I do think I think you raised it last week. They seem to be a team that don't have a killer instinct. That they just don't have that desperation that some teams have. And I think that's one of their weaknesses.
Oh, always
Unless
has
they're
been.
playing Richmond. They seem to find it against Richmond.
Yeah, not this week. Anyway.
No, at home they have.
Yeah. Look, the Giants lack spirit. It's always been the knock, hasn't it? They've a very talented team that's lacked spirit. We thought early in the season it looked like they had a bit of fire in the belly, but they have really tailed off, in my opinion. Anyway, Western Bulldogs getting up over Melbourne. Melbourne having a horror season. Western Bulldogs 10 goals, 14-74 to the D's 9-12-66, a margin of 8 points.
Yes, and Dunkley getting a dream team score that a cricketer would be very proud of. 168 or something like that.
Bloody hell.
Massive game from him, and the usual other suspects helping him. They've got a mighty midfield, have the Bulldogs, and look, one thing I have a lot of respect for the Bulldogs. I don't like their coach Beveridge. That's pretty well known. I don't think many people do, but you have to respect the fact that it is a team that plays pretty hard football, and they do try their guts out. And I think they just, and then not a game overly high quality. They did outslog them.
Nothing, Nick?
Nothing.
No, right. And look, finally, apart from our game, the second best result of the round in front of a staggering 33,000. 33,000 people.
The amazing thing, where did they hide 30 of them? That's what I'd like to know.
Brisbane Lions storming home to win by 48 points, 14 goals, 13-97 after a 7-goal blitz in the first quarter, pretty much shut Port out. Port only scoring 6-13 for the match, 49, a margin of 48 points. The Lions looking really good.
Well, they played very, very good footy. The one thing I'd like to know is what Ken Hinkley's words are going to be this week, because 2 weeks ago he said that this group was untrustworthy. And then when they beat us in the showdown, Ken Hinkley says, I believe in this group. And now they've had their asses kicked in.
Yeah.
I think he'd better come out and say they're untrustworthy again.
No. He's probably going to say they're unbelievably trustworthy. So they're a bit from both sides.
Well, they were terrible. They honestly were terrible. And every bit of good quality football they showed against us, all of that was missing in this particular game. The Lions did seize the initiative early, but the movement of the ball by Port Adelaide was terrible, absolutely shocking. Whereas
they were trying to play dry weather football in that weather.
Well,
they were trying handball, like the handball runs and everything. You don't handball in the wet. You just don't.
They really were pathetic. They were almost Gold Coast-like today, and you just wondered, where the hell did they play so good against us? And they have been doing this as yo-yo effect now.
Since round 8.
They say since round 8, but if you look at before round 8, Nikki, it was 2 wins, 2 losses, 2 wins, 2 losses. Then they decided to do it singly, one win, one loss. So it's a massive yo-yo effect. And very well, I'd say they are an untrustworthy team, and today they got the bad Port Adelaide. And the Brian, and look, all credit to Brisbane Lions. Can't take anything away from them at all. They are an example of what the AFL, if they want to keep that miserable team up at the Gold Coast up there, they've got to do something to make a set up like they did and bet the whole club. Not give draft picks willy-nilly to them. Just give them a proper structure, or move them to Tasmania. They probably should.
Nothing, Nick?
No, I think Macca kind of covered it off quite well there.
Right.
The only thing I'd say is that even though Brisbane are doing quite well this year, their crowds are down. I think there's massive problems in terms of people actually wanting to go and watch either of those two Brisbane teams.
Oh, I think Brisbane will catch on again. Queensland teams are funny, and it is not a footy state. And I think the best thing they can do, and this is a Tuesday Night Live discussion, so we won't get too heavily into it right now, but I think the best thing that they can do for Brisbane is to fold Gold Coast. It's an absolute waste of space. Those kids are drowning up there. They're not interested. They've got no spirit. And why dilute the product? They'd be much better off having one strong team than two average ones. Anyway, as I said, that's a subject for Tuesday night. But that game that we had on the weekend, and we may as well move to that game. Oh no, let's just have a look at the ladder quickly. Because it does make for some interesting reading as it just comes up on my screen. So the Cats still in front, 2 games clear on 52 points, and then things tightening up. Collingwood, Brisbane and West Coast all on 44 points and all pretty close percentage-wise. And importantly, no blowouts apart from Geelong in terms of percentage. So win losses is going to be really important because percentage is quite close. Richmond moving up quietly to 5th and regaining players and a bit of form. They got Port next week too, so that'll be interesting. The Giants slipping to 6th. Adelaide holding steady at 7th, also on 36 points, with Essendon in the 8 now on 36 points as well. Port slipping out of the 8 along with Western Bulldogs, who was quietly just creeping up the Bulldogs. 32 points.
Yeah.
Unfortunately not a great percentage, only 94.5, but just sneaking up. And if they just keep winning, they've got the Saints next week. You'd think that would be another win.
Yes.
Put it this way: if the Crows and Richmond win next week, the Bulldogs win, they're in the 8. So that's very interesting. Hawthorn on 28, along with North Melbourne and Freo, really starting to struggle, both win-loss and also percentage down to 96%, and lost the last 4 in a row. And you'd say on that form, not only are they in danger of missing the 8, but Rossi Lyon, surely they must have had enough now, Ross Lyon, I reckon.
They've extended his bloody contract.
I can't believe it. I didn't know that, Macca, but why would you?
No, I'm sure I heard it, and they're out in the chat. They might know better than me, but I thought they extended his contract for 2 or 3 years.
Goodness
and
me.
they were talking about adding Kelly into that. There's still the talk about Kelly coming back home from Geelong, and they go, "Oh yeah, Freo's in the box seat for this." And it's like, do you guys actually not understand the fact that Ross Lyon told Kelly to his face that he's not good enough for AFL, which is why Kelly only asked to be traded to West Coast.
Yeah.
He would go to Fremantle, I think, quite happily.
If Ross wasn't there.
Yeah, if Ross wasn't there.
Yeah, so they're in a bit of strife, I think, Freo. Sydney and Saints on 24 points, but poles apart, really. And Melbourne having the worst season. How do you reckon Goody's going? He would have to only have one season after this to drag the Melbourne Football Club up by the bootstraps. So they're back where they were. All that work that Paul Roos did and the handover to Goodwin and all the rest of it, they're back where they were.
Well, see, put it this way, I would say that you'd say by about round 8, round 10, around about there, if they were, say, like 2-6 or 3-7 or something like that, I wouldn't like to be Goody. I think he could not. He might be one of those coaches that don't see the season out.
Yep.
He's got to be under the microscope.
Gotcha.
No, quite honestly, I don't think he should be involved in coaching because of the involvement he had in that Essendon drug saga. I personally think he's somebody who should have just been banned because he put players in jeopardy.
Well, you don't know that, Nick.
So, I know he's one of the coaching staff. He was responsible for that program.
Well, no, you don't know that.
No, we don't
So
know that, Nikki.
let's just smash a bunch of allegedlys around there.
Yeah,
because you don't know that. I mean, John Worsfold.
As a coach, you are responsible for the welfare of your athletes. So when it's a club,
we can also
apparently a club sanctioned program.
You can also be shut out of information as well, Nick.
Yeah. So, but you're right. He just really hasn't been able to get that group gelled at all. I think there's still massive issues of they don't know how to win because they've had to, for so long, do that defensive mindset that switch over is just, I think, almost a bit too hard. They'll get on a roll every so often, but then when things don't quite go their way or they're not quite fit enough, because we know that those players actually don't like working hard.
Well, they got players like Brayshaw, who was a good player last year, and he's no good this year. Player like Oliver, who is supposed to be one of the young guns of the competition, barely getting a touch. And they've got good players not playing all that well, and their game plan is obviously no good because other teams managed to dismantle it pretty easily. So
they're not good defensively. They're like us, Mac.
No,
they're
very
like
poor,
us.
very
They're
poor.
not good defensively. They're lazy. I don't think their midfield runs defensively particularly well.
And with the 666, that's what's showing up this year, is that you need a midfield that will run defensively.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're in trouble.
Yep. And they don't have it. They've given away the second most points of any team in the comp, and it doesn't surprise me. So, anyway, underneath Melbourne, we have Carlton, but you would think on form at the moment, Carlton are likely to finish above Melbourne. Something would have to change. Carlton have got...
Oh, it's a major worry, isn't it?
Well, Carlton have got Gold Coast next... Carlton have got Gold Coast next week, and Melbourne have got the West Coast. So they're going to be even on points, and Carlton will have a higher percentage. So Carlton will rise to 16th, all things being equal. Pick 3 for us.
It's looking that way.
Yep.
I want pick 2.
No, you're not getting pick 2. I don't think we'll get pick 2. In fact, I wouldn't mind betting that we get about pick 4. Because St Kilda are no good either, and if Carlton continue to rally like they have, it'll be 4 or 5. But 4 or 5 is still a good pick. Pity it's a shallow draft. But anyway, so that's the scores and that's the ladder. Let's have a look at our game, shall we? Because it was just...
That's what... I was going to say, that's why we're here.
That's what we're here for. But, I mean, God, it wasn't much of a game, really, was it? Wasn't much of a game, I don't reckon. The final score, Adelaide 23 goals, 13, 151. Gold Coast 8 goals, 856. A couple of those late donations as well. Margin there of 95 points. Gold Coast's biggest losing margin for the year. And collectively, we've beaten Gold Coast by a higher margin this year than we did in their first season. And that is a particularly telling stat because it tells you exactly where Gold Coast are at, and that's nowhere.
Yeah, look, I'm going to make a comment here which is probably controversial, and you guys might say is totally unwarranted or totally incorrect. But I was looking at Stuart Dew. Look, when you've got a coach that's in the condition that he is in, where he's got a dewlap hanging over his belt...
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous, Macca.
Yeah,
no, let me
don't
finish.
go there. Don't go there, Macca.
Let me finish. I'm not going to rubbish the man as an individual. I'm just saying,
but I know exactly what you're going to say.
I'm just saying, whether you've got that appearance, do you think that rubs off onto these players because they don't go 100%?
Come on, mate.
Just a thought.
Come on, mate.
Nah.
Well, I'm allowed to have a thought.
Yeah, you are. But no, I don't think that. I've never. Have you ever played under a coach who might have been overweight and you thought, Macca, maybe I'll be selective about when I go for the ball?
I've never played under a coach in that condition.
I have.
I mean, I know that Stewie Dew as a player was a very good player and he never backed out of anything, and he had it was 100% and all the rest of it. He always played somewhat overweight, but his condition at the moment's not too good.
No, well, I'd imagine that it would have zero impact on the Gold Coast Suns. And if you had to listen to Drew post-match, he certainly doesn't lack passion for trying to turn that club around. And I think
you'd have passion too, though, wouldn't you, if you were in that position?
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that I don't think his weight's got any. His weight doesn't outweigh his passion to try and turn that around. So no, I disagree, Mac. So yeah, as I said, a margin of 95 points. Gold Coast didn't really turn up for much of the game. My opinion was that they were lazy. They didn't look motivated. They didn't look to atone for the previous week's smashing, which means that, to me, that they don't really care. I'm actually...
They did a little bit after, like, the start of the third quarter, or for most of the third quarter. There was a bit more passion, but you were right.
When you get smashed by 95 points the previous week, Nick, you're supposed to come out from the first bounce with a little bit of desire to atone. Not when the game's already shot. I'm actually amazed that Isaac Rankin is extended. I have no idea why Isaac Rankin would extend. Do you?
No.
No idea.
No, it had to be beat, but he hasn't even played one game for them yet to experience what it's like out there, because he must see this spiritless group come up just trudging off the oval with their backsides kicked in week after week, and why you'd want to join that, I don't really know.
Well, maybe he thinks he could be an integral part of an amazing turnaround or what have you. I don't know, but terribly disappointed. I don't think Lukosius has done so as yet. He may have. I lost track, to be honest, but
no, he definitely hasn't. He hasn't.
Yeah. So that's and to be honest with you, we were talking about this briefly, Macca, before the cast started. I don't think the game, as much as the margin was pretty good and very handy in terms of percentage, I don't think it actually showed us in much of a light either. I still felt that we looked disconnected between our mids and our forwards. I didn't feel like our mids worked particularly hard, and I do know that it's hard to get yourself up for full quarters against a rabble like that. But these blokes got smashed the week before by Port, and one of the main reasons they got smashed is because they were lazy and didn't run defensively. So you would have thought that there'd be a bit of desire to make up for that. But I just felt that we beat them on skill and class alone. Really, it wasn't system it probably was system, but it wasn't greater commitment or desire or anything like that.
Well, I think our backline's been not bad all year. I think they've been a group that have put in 100% and given their best. And our forward line did look better with the extra small in there, but coming back to the midfield again and the disconnect, we actually got beaten in the clearances. I'm only going by my memory, but I think we got beaten in the clearances. But this is a side that's thrashing the other team by nearly 100 points, and we get beat in the clearances. So that tells you a lot about the way our midfield is structured. I think we've got a major problem the way our midfield is structured. And as a person who used to play as a midfielder, I just look at it and I think, I can't believe anybody sets up like this. And we do it week after week after week. And even against a team like them. And as you say, they don't seem to have that connection role. Brad Crouch seemed to be on a different assignment this week. What do you have, something like 14 or 16 tackles or something? It seemed like he was playing a defensive role this week rather than an attacking role. And I was disappointed in that particular area of our game, Fiend. I thought that it didn't really set us up for a blueprint of how we're going to play in the future. I just think it was just, as you say, we were better than them, so we got more goals.
Nick,
there was no real particular style there.
Watching the game, I was frustrated at the end of the game because if we'd played well, that score should have been doubled. That's how bad Gold Coast were.
Oh, that's a bit much, Steve.
No, I honestly thought we should, with how easily they were turning it over and the fact that we could not win a clearance in the centre. I was ropeable with our midfield for the most part, for the majority of them, because there were once again those clearances. You would see Gold Coast players just waltz out of that contest way too easily once again, which was our major problem last year, of they don't know either how to get into that kind of area they expected to win the ball. I mean, poor Rob had one of those games where they're both hanging on, the freeze paid against him. When he gets
couldn't believe that
when he gets grabbed high across the neck, the free kick goes to
the last opponent. The last one against Sam Day was a classic. That was hilarious.
Oh, that was just like the poor bugger.
Yeah.
Umpire 29, he was shocking.
Yeah.
Look,
you're right, Fiend. There was the only good delivery we had into our forward line was from Atkins, from Miller, or from Tex. Two of those are our forward players, really. We've been putting Atkins in the middle. Not Atkins, Miller in the middle. But I think some of those was when he was actually playing off the half forward. But there really wasn't that we should have had. At least we had camera angles. We could see those repeat leads that was being done. And the commentators were right, is that Jenkins was giving a lot of really good leads, but very rarely was it kicked to his advantage.
I'm convinced.
Kicked to him at all.
I'm convinced that it's our midfield. It's been difficult to tell this year whether it's been the midfield or whether it's been the forwards being dysfunctional. And because you don't get the camera angles, so it makes it difficult. But you're right, Nick. The camera angles at Metricon, is Metricon? That's what they call it, isn't it?
Yeah. Metricon, yeah.
Are a little bit different, and you do get some different angles, and you can see quite clearly. We're kicking the ball over the heads. We're kicking not to the wrong side of a contest. You're not kicking it into space. Like so many fundamentals in terms of our forward 50 entry. It's our midfield. For a team that, and we'll go through the stats now, but just to highlight this one particular one, for a team that won by pretty much 100 points, we had 66 clangers to Gold Coast 61. Now, I know we had the ball a lot more than Gold Coast, but 66 clangers under that pressure, or lack thereof, tells a bit of a story. We turned it over 63 times with that sort of pressure. Now, Gold Coast turned it over a lot. You could tell that Gold Coast were turning it over a lot because that's where we got most of our score. But we were only 14 behind them, or 16 behind them, in terms of turnovers. So our disposal efficiency was fine, 75.8, but I just felt that those, given the amount of uncontested possession that we had, those two skill error stats are quite telling, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, there's no argument about that at all. In fact, I'll amplify it even further with I thought Tex Walker was on the weekend. I thought he played pretty well, and camera angles also showed it many, many times. Tex he actually led the position on his own, and they didn't kick it to him. I just couldn't believe it. They bomb it to a pack or bomb it to
a small forward.
There was one there where we had a small forward against two tall. They bombed it there, and Walker was sitting on his own at centre half forward. I was screaming. They don't lift the eyes enough, and they don't really try and just put that little kick that makes the forward run at the ball.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You put it into the space and let the forward run on, and half the time you'll put it to where you want the forward to run. So you don't kick it on top of him. You can see as a midfielder or a player running into the forward, or towards the forward line, you can see where the space is, and you can see where the forwards are, and you put it where you want the forward to run, because often you can see it better than the forward knows himself. So we never do that. Anyway, let's go through some head-to-heads, and just a shocking disparity in disposals. 476 Adelaide to 302. That's a disparity for those not inclined with maths of 174. 174 disposals different. 50 kicks and a massive 124 handballs different. In fact, I felt we handballed the ball too much.
We did over handball.
Yeah, there were a couple of, we had some really nice proactive, that running link-up play. We had, there was one where we took it from the back line up to, the goal line, which was brilliant. That's the way you use it. But you're right, we still get into those little dinky handball, some of them too short.
Yep, we do.
Too easily closed down.
And
you have to do another panic handball.
And flat-footed players. I felt we got a bit too cute at various times, and I know it's difficult not to do that in this sort of circumstance, but I didn't feel like we would. I mean, we could have cut them to shreds. If we'd have been more decisive and aggressive with our ball use and our disposal, we could have won by 150 points easily. Anyway, as you'd expect, with such a high disparity in disposals, we outmarked them 120 to 85. Gold Coast had 75 tackles, surprisingly, because I didn't see them lay too many. We had 69, which wasn't a bad number. Brad Crouch had most of those. Riley O'Brien, 44 hit-outs to Witt's 37. I thought it was a good battle. I thought Riley struggled at times, but it was pretty even for the most part. Gold Coast, for a team who lost by 9 million points, 24 frees to 17.
Yeah, so that was amazing, and then most of them were given by umpire 29.
Yeah.
Witts is one of those very, very tall ruckman with very, very long arms, and that's the type of ruckman that Riley O'Brien has a little bit of trouble with, and because because while he can jump like hell, they can too with long arms. That makes it a little bit harder, but. I do think that poor old Riley got pinged a lot of times. Absolutely complete bugger all. 7
free kicks he gave away, and I reckon maybe 2 of them might have been there.
Yep.
Look, our disposals per scoring shot was back down 13, as you'd expect. Clearances we lost, 37 to 41. Of those, we broke even centre clearances, 13 apiece. We got done by 4 at stoppage clearances. Clangers, as I mentioned, 66 to 61. Yes, we had the ball more often, but not a huge amount of pressure. Inside 50, 65 to 40. Not as much of a disparity as I suspected. So Gold Coast were getting it in a bit. I mean, that's only 5 less than what we got last week against Port Adelaide. We had 45 inside 50s. But of course, they just didn't have much of a target up forward.
They didn't, but also, once again, I think our defence is the area where there's not... I mean, there's still some problems there, but they're the ones, I think, part of the structure who can actually kind of hold their head up high for most games.
Yeah, they can combine, Nikki. I think they've been pretty good all year, even under the most... even our worst games. There's not many times you'd blame the defence and say it's their fault. But when you've got players streaming in like they were in the showdown, the defence is just to get outnumbered. But no, all of our backmen fight on very well for the ball.
Probably Tarley's the only one that I've been a bit concerned about. He seems to be a bit hot and cold this year. But you're right. Overall, I think our defence has been pretty sound. It's probably our most reliable zone of the ground. Certainly more reliable.
And for me, a special mention to Kelly. He's been the most...
He had a great game, another great game.
Yep, he's been so consistently strong all year.
What happens to him when Tom Dede comes back?
Does he go back to
Collingwood?
Try to get to Collingwood to play with his brother?
Yep.
There are rumours of that.
Yeah, well, he's not doing his trade value any harm at all.
And we've put him on the trade table before, and to me that shows the character of him is that he knows he's been on that trade table before, and he's okay to, but he will still come out and perform like that. He will give his 100% once he crosses that line.
Yeah, he's had a very good year. He's had a really good year.
Look, he's one of those lads that you'd say gets the most out of his ability, and you can't knock him for that. Contested marks, only 9 to 8. We played keepings off most of the time. There wasn't a lot of contested aerial work, although Josh Jenkins on Lockie Weller the commentators, I think, took half the game to realise that he was on a bloke who was about 3'9".
But you know what? So Josh last week was atrocious, but I kind of forgave him a little bit about it because it was his first game back because of that knee injury, and we know he has trouble playing through pain. He's proven that. But this week, I think he needed that game in order to play how he did this week. And a couple of those marks, yes, they're shorter, but he was using his body and his size really well, which is something we haven't seen from him for a while.
Oh, Nicky, you've been kind. I reckon one of those overhead marks I reckon he had his eyes shut and he didn't even know he'd marked it until it hit his hands. And then, but seriously,
that last one he did where he was between the two players.
Yes.
And he was the lead up to it was really well done because he made sure, okay, yep, I've got two players that are minding me. He got Ben King lost, and so he was then able to get that other players in front of him. He can control where that player is then going to be. Really nice push to the side, the use of the kind of like his knee to do that. That's smart play.
Oh,
well, come on, Nick. He's an AFL footballer.
No,
that's
yeah, he is.
Key position forward 101. And to be honest with you, the only bloke softer in the air than Josh Jenkins is that young lad King. Because that contest that you were talking about there, Ben King did everything possible not to touch Josh Jenkins at any stage in that contest. He was about 3 feet away from him when he eventually got to the contest. Nobody whatsoever, and I hate to burn a young kid, but that was really worrying in my opinion. He just did not want to put body on at all. And he's got a lot of developing to do, that lad. I reckon Gold Coast have made an error with the type of players that they've recruited.
Yeah.
Because they don't need lads that they need to develop. What they needed to do was recruit mature age big players and develop a young midfield around them. But what they've done is they've just got like Lukosius and King and these lads. Sam Day's taken a while to come on. Anyway.
Absolutely, Steve. We'll give him Jenkins next year for pick one.
I'd love to. Well, there's a strong rumour that they might get Hugh Greenwood for something. But we might talk about that more on Tuesday night.
Package them up and get picks 1 and 2 of them.
Yeah, so look, at the end of the day, tackles inside 50. How's this for a stat? Tackles inside 50. Gold Coast beat us 15-9. So there are some key stats where you still think to yourself, the eye wasn't lying, because I thought it was a scrappy game. I felt like we weren't cohesive. I felt like we just beat them with a better drilled set of play, more class, less skill errors, the ability to mop up when we did turn it over, etc., etc. But pretty uninspiring.
Hence why I said if we'd actually played well, we should have beat them by 200 points.
Yeah, I don't disagree with him, Nick. I don't disagree at all.
One of the reasons there weren't so many contested ones in their forward line was the fact that they delivered the ball very poorly. So a lot of the time we just took the ball straight out non-contested. But you're right, in our forward line, a lot of that was because, again, our delivery wasn't good enough and created a contest.
Mm. Yeah, look, all right, let's go through some individuals. And apologies if this... we've just had a 95-point thumping. And yet this is a pretty pedestrian cast, but it's indicative of where we're at. And probably where Gold Coast at too. Anyway, Matty Crouch, good 4 quarters, 36 disposals, only 11 kicks though, 25 handballs. Playing a bit more inside, I think.
16 tackles too, though, Fiend.
Matt Crouch only got 3 tackles.
I thought you said Brad.
No, I said Matt.
Apologies.
Come on, mate. So 1 goal, 1, 3 tackles, 3 inside 50s, 7 clearances, 3 rebound 50s, 14 contested possessions.
Just cruising around, didn't he? Like he always does, just cruises around.
Yeah, I mean, only gained us 225. I don't think it was despite the stats, I don't think it was a terribly impressive. We know that Matt Crouch can accumulate possessions, but I think he could have worked harder to use the ball by foot a little bit more.
I thought it was a bit better from him. He made some really nice passes and nice decisions. You compare that to Brad, who was this was a game where Brad frustrated me once again, because whilst yes, he got all those tackles, yes, he appeared to be involved, etc., but he was very good at the panic kick or making it like trying to do a kick and kicking straight to them when there was a better option elsewhere. He's still so much frustrating to me, because this was a game made for him. And it was hilarious that the commentators were talking about our inside grunt midfielders and saying, oh, yeah, it's Sloan, Matt and Brad, and so we need some class on the outside. It's like, you guys actually don't understand our midfield this year, because it's Cam Ellis-Yeoman on the inside and it's more Matt and Brad on the outside, not inside players.
But that's what I was a little bit bemused. Brad was definitely playing an inside mid role.
Yeah, definitely. He did. Anyway, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Rory Atkins squibbed around for 35 disposals, 28 and 7. No, he squibbed all day. He squibbed all day, Nick, and you can't tell me.
Not squib.
Oh my God, he did so. I saw him pick and choose when he was going to run, when he was going to tackle, when he was getting involved. He squibbed around for 35 touches. He took 4 marks, kicked 2 points, 3 tackles, if you don't mind, 7 inside 50s, 1 rebound 50. He had a massive 4 contested possessions. And despite having all his ball on the outside, went at under 70% disposal efficiency, 10 score involvements, gained a 687 metres, turned it over 5 times. Not impressed.
No, it's hard to argue with him, because he doesn't win contested ball, and he...
No, it wasn't even that, Macca. It wasn't even that. I saw him not chase on many occasions.
You mean run behind?
I saw him not chase.
Yeah, he's one of those, if he has to chase, he just does that jog about 10 metres behind and makes no ground, so make sure he doesn't get into any physical contact. But look, he'd be on my trade table as well.
Yep. Nick, you're going to disagree with me?
Yeah, I was, because it was... Okay. I'm looking at the type of player he is. So that running back with the flight of the ball, the running with the flight of the ball, and he took that hit. That's very un-Atkins-like. There were
I agree with that one. Yeah. No, there was only one, Nicky.
I think
don't invent 2 more.
I think Smithers was playing a trick on him and said, "You're free," and just to make him think that there was no one.
I reckon you're right. Too.
No, but listen, it's not. It wasn't so much his contest on the ball. It was the fact that he picked and chose all day. He did not commit to running defensively, and considering that's where all our problems are. With our spread, our defensive run, our two-way run of our outside midfielders, that's where all our problems are. In a game like this, and with Rory Atkins having struggled over the past month with that particular aspect of his game, he's not in a position where he can squib. And Rory Atkins has got far too big an opinion of himself, and he thinks 35 touches is going to do him on a Monday morning at the review.
Yep, no argument for me at all. He's a very, very talented individual. He's got a beautiful leg. He's got a very good sidestep. He's got a little bit of pace, not lightning, but a little bit. And if he actually had courage, he'd be a very, very good player. But that's the one thing he does lack, Nick.
No, it's not so much courage. It's the defensive desire.
Well, that's
lacking with him.
Look, you take Sloney. Sloney would never allow somebody just to beat him as easy as Atkins does.
Yeah.
Because his pride wouldn't allow it. And that's where Atkins, because he will allow that to happen, that's where he lets the team down.
And that's the GWS problem, is that somebody who has a lot of talent, who didn't have to try, as a junior, as opposed to somebody who didn't have that talent but had to rely on effort and that continual repeat effort in order to make sure that they stayed in the game and they could keep playing the game at the highest level that they possibly could. There's your difference between Sloan and Atkins, and it comes down to that desire, which Atkins doesn't have. And I'll agree with you guys. I would be very happy for us to trade him out, and he would be worth quite a bit because we can see those flaws. Other teams probably do, but they think they'll be able to get something out of it, or they can work within it within their system.
Well,
it doesn't work.
It's very much like Ricky Henderson. Like Hawthorn has made the Ricky Henderson trade work, and I reckon he'd fit very well into Clarkson's system. Clarkson has
that was a deal.
Well, Clarkson has a couple of those. Isaac Smith, Ricky Henderson, Rory Atkins had worked really well with Hawthorn. But we need, unfortunately, blokes that can run both ways with the type of game plan that we play, and he's not doing it. Anyway, Lairdy got 30 touches, 8 marks, 1 tackle, 6 inside 50s. He went at 86% disposal efficiency, which is far better. Still only the 6 contested possessions. But a little bit more metres gained, 371. Just a good, honest game, I guess, from Lairdy. Did what he had to do. Yeah,
good summary. I thought it was a good, honest game. It wasn't one of his really outstanding ones, but it wasn't a poor one. He just did what happened to be in front of me on the night. So, yeah, he did his job.
Yep, great.
Thanks, Nick. Jake Kelly
Once again, you're welcome.
Jake Kelly was, I agree, probably in our top 3 players. 13 kicks, 14 handballs for 27 is a really good stat line for Jake off that half-back line. 7 marks.
Yeah, but I'm going to have his efficiency rating with his disposals.
Can you just... How many... Oh, my God.
We've been doing this for how many years?
Seriously, I do it in the same order every time, every week.
I'm slow.
Jesus Christ, honestly. Jake Kelly, 8 contested positions. Hey, Mac, he went at 81.5 disposal efficiency, 5 score involvements, only the 274 metres game, but that's okay. 11 intercepts. Yeah, 11 intercepts.
I thought he was pretty good.
Good game, yep.
Yeah, I'm very happy with his game. And he does. It's one thing he really has prided himself on this year, I reckon, is his disposal. Whereas, like in... And that comes with self-confidence too, because, in other games he's never been sure he's in the side, and he's also perhaps under a bit more pressure. But this year he really has used the ball very well in nearly every game he's played in, and also very hard to beat one-on-one. So very happy with his games at the moment. And
he's actually his ability to see the patterns and the way that the game is playing out, because often once he's gotten rid of it, he's often then pointing to that other player where the next kick should be going.
The only trouble is, Nicky,
and he's often making a good decision there because it's somebody who's actually free.
Yeah, but the only trouble with Jake is that he wants to play the game at the pace that his mind works. And that's why he's always flapping his arms, telling people to calm down, because he can't keep up when the ball's moving a bit quicker. He will, and no disrespect to Jake whatsoever, but I think that's the way he plays his footy, and it's fine, except when you're trying to move the ball quickly. And Jake will kick the ball sideways and backwards, whether we're 10 goals up or 1 point down with a minute to go, and that's probably the problem with Jake. He's only got one speed that he plays at, but look, as I said before, he's getting the best out of his ability, and he's certainly I would say, along with Alex Keith, probably our most consistent defender this year, so can't do any better than that. Miller, go on.
Because I'm not sure whether are you going to do Keith at all?
I might.
Don't you know the order, Nicky? Listen, wait for the order.
No, I'm just checking because we don't do every player.
No,
I'm just checking because just on that point regarding Keith, because earlier in the year I was quite strong that he still takes too long for his disposal and to make those decisions. But against Gold Coast, very much so, being really proactive and trying to move that ball on quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a step forward in Keith. I was really pleased to see.
Yeah, and unlike Jake Kelly, tended to kick it forward, which is nice. Wayne Miller should stay in the midfield for the rest of the season.
Definitely.
I just don't think Don's got a choice. Even when Cam Ellis-Yolman comes back in, I don't think Don's got a choice. We need Wayne Miller in the middle. At times he tried to do too much and got caught, but I thought particularly his first half was really solid. 13 kicks, 14 handballs, so a good ratio there. Took 7 marks, kicked a goal, 4 goal assists, 7 inside 50s, which is the key stat there. I just felt like he gave us a little bit. Only 6 contested possessions, but he went at 85%, so he used the ball really well on the outside, which is what we wanted. 12 score involvements. Importantly, he only got 308 metres gains, which showed that his delivery was very much that conduit between the midfield and the forward line. He did miss a few targets going forward, but hopefully over time he can hone that a bit. But it was a good game from Miller, I thought.
He's come a long way this year from last year, mate, and I think in terms of promise, I'm not saying he'll be as good as McLeod, but if he keeps improving each year, bit by bit as he is, he'll end up as at least a poor man's McLeod, if you know what I mean. He's got that rare talent that not many people have got, the ability, vision around him and the ability to get through it, and at his best uses the ball beautifully. And
I think you should wash your mouth out. Macca,
well,
wash your mouth out. He is not.
That's my prediction.
He is not in the same stratosphere as Andrew McLeod. Not in the same stratosphere. A poor man, a bankrupt man's Andrew McLeod. Not a knock on Miller, but he's got a long way to go.
He's got a very good player, because to me, McLeod's actually one of the best players I've actually seen play the game.
Long way to get
one
to
of the
McLeod.
best ever. One of the best ever. What I'm saying is, but some of his moves are a little bit like it, and as I say, he could end up being a poor man's McLeod. So
you didn't see Macca get tackled very often. Miller gets tackled.
No, I love McLeod. He's my favourite.
Come on, Sloaney, 8 kicks. Sloaney, 18 handballs for 26, 7 marks, 3 tackles.
It's a little bit disappointing.
Macca, for God's sake. It's like this is the first time we've ever done this. 12 contested possessions, 80% disposal efficiency, 13 score involvement. It's a weird game from Sloaney. I expected him to dominate a little bit more, but it's kind of in and out.
Sorry, you paused for him. I thought you'd finished, but sorry. They reckon I'm mumbling, so I will speak a lot better, Simon.
Macca's gone. Macca's gone.
He's speaking a lot clearer. Clear you can't hear it.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with that.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back now.
You muted me, I'll bet.
No, I didn't. I didn't touch her.
No, look, I was a little bit disappointed in Sloan's game, because I just thought that wasn't quite as sharp as he normally does, and I suppose he gets tagged and he gets hung onto and all the rest of it. But look, it was a reasonable game. It wasn't a bad game, but when he's tagged, he never really plays as well as he can, obviously. And he hasn't got that ability to shake that tag.
Yeah, but when he's been tagged before, he hasn't even been able to get the handballs away, etc. So he was still trying to be quite proactive. So I was okay with the game that he was playing. You could tell he was not happy and he really wanted this win. And unlike Sloan, he was having a lot to say to the umpires. Some very interesting things about how, if the players' heads bent over, you're allowed to reach over the top and tackle them. And the umpire's like, oh, no, you can't do it. It's still high. I felt like Sloan should have turned around going, so where are all my frees then? Because, that's what's happening to him.
That particular incident, Nicky, is a very... sorry, I was going to say that particular incident, Nicky, was a very good example of very poor umpiring, because that player ran into Sloan's stomach with his head, and
Kelly.
Sloan... was Kelly, was it? And
yeah, it was Sloan and Kelly. tackled him.
And they put their arms over, didn't touch his head or his neck, and grabbed him around the waist. And he's boring his head into their body, and he gets a free for too high.
If you're Stuart Dew, why the hell are you tagging anyone? What are they going to learn out of tagging a bloke? Just let them play, for goodness sake. I thought that was stupid. And it wasn't terribly effective. I just think Sloaney probably wanted to be on the surf rather than on that ground, really. And fair enough too. Look, there's not too many other I want to talk about, but Brad Crouch, I felt, despite his 16 tackles, bog average, in my opinion. 10 kicks, 15 handballs for 25, 2 marks, kicked a point, 16 tackles, yay. 2 inside 50s, 1 rebound 50, 9 contested possessions despite playing inside Macca, only went at 60% disposal efficiency once again.
Played up forward quite a bit.
227, and only kicked a point. 227 metres gained. Had fairly low time on ground stat, 73% time on ground, which is interesting. Matt had 74. But I just felt it was a bog average game from Brad.
I think a bog average game from Brad is better than a lot of some of our players. I still...
No,
not kidding.
I disagree with Macca.
So where does 40% of his disposals go, Mac?
Well, the same place where everybody else's go.
No. We win it. Like Wayne Miller went at 81%. Had the same amount of contested ball. He's not a freak. He's just a footballer.
The average is about 70.
And it takes a fair bit to get 10% less than the average.
I just think you build him every week. I think you build him
60% disposal efficiency, Macca.
And many of those were stupid kicks. They weren't under pressure kicks. They were ones he was making, consciously trying to, move us forward. And he was picking out Gold Coast players.
Yeah, he missed so many targets.
Well, I'm in BB's camp, Brett Breitenbach's camp.
Yeah, well, that's nothing to be proud of.
Well,
sorry, Brent.
You heard that. What he said is, Nicky, shut up. You can't question the fact that he don't really give it 100% getting the ball. Yes, his disposal could be improved. I agree with that.
Does he run defensively, Mac?
Nope.
Not always, no.
But
then again, he's in very good company because most
No. That is not a defence. We're talking about Brad Crouch. Does Brad Crouch run defensively, Macca?
No, not very much.
Does Brad Crouch hit... No. Hang on. Does Brad Crouch hit targets, Macca?
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Only 60% of the time. So 2 out of the 3 KPIs that Brad has, he fails at. And
does he actually crack in hard and get the football?
Yeah, but we've got 93 of those blokes, Macca. We need Brad to be an outside midfielder, which is what he was recruited to be. An inside-out midfielder that is our cream, and he's not. He's just another workhorse. Send him on his way.
I thought it's out. Oh, no, I think that's very unkind.
Send him on his way.
Can't agree. Look, I'm not happy with the fact that he's disposal 60%. I'd like him to be up 75%, 80%. But I can't remember any game where I'd say that Brad never tried his guts.
I never said that. I never said that once.
But I can say that about a lot of other players in the side.
Yeah, but I never said that. But I'll tell you what, Brad only tries when the ball's in his vicinity.
Oh,
yeah, if he actually has to actively run to try and stop them getting clear entries into their forward 50, to try and put that pressure on, if they're what he deems it's Atkins. He and Atkins are a pair at that of they choose when they're going to defensively run, and it's not good enough. Not with the talent that both of them have and what we want out of them for our team to actually play well in finals. We've already said numerous times we can't trust Atkins in big games. I don't think you can trust Brad.
No, I agree, Nick, 100%. And I know there's a lot of anti those comments on Spreaker Chat, and I'm sure other people listening over the next day or two will have the same thoughts. But I've held my counsel on Brad for about a month, and I've watched him particularly closely in that time. Not because I want to dig the boots in, but because I want to see the value of having him in the team, and he does crack in. But his disposal is often panicked. He misses a lot of targets. The targets that he hit are often under pressure. He doesn't kick the ball to advantage, and he doesn't run defensively. So he is about as limited, Macca, as Huey Greenwood in terms of what he can offer.
Except he gets the ball a lot more.
Well, he might get the ball a lot more, but what does he do with it? What's the point?
Yeah, I think we're going very circular. I would play Brad every day of the week, and I accept the fact that he's not perfect.
Yeah.
But I don't. There is not a player in below in the Bs that would take his place and play better.
Oh no, absolutely not. Absolutely not. There's not. He's still in our midfield rotation, and so he should be. But in terms of being a highly ranked midfielder, he's not. He's just a workman. He's a workman. That's all he is. Riley Knight, pointless playing him. I don't know why we played him. He had 25 good touches, took 9 marks, 3 tackles, 3 inside 50s. Had 5 contested possessions.
We played him a bit more in the midfield as well.
Don't know why.
That way whether we were looking for a bit more of that speed and movement around it, because what I could see was who we played more through the midfield, because Smith actually spent quite a number of time in there, as well as Miller. I think they were kind of being the Lynch in a way, but putting them in that role in order to do it. But then we put Knight in. But one of the thing with Knight is we've said he needs to get more possessions. He was always that under 20.
Yep.
So he's actually gotten over 20. So it's a step forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, a solid game from Riley, no question about it. And another one who always cracks in. You always get an effort from Riley Knight. But
big improvement on Douglas, anyhow.
Oh, God, my grandmother would be. But anyway, and it begs the question, what we're doing with Hugh Greenwood, it looked like we were actually trying to play him pretty much as a permanent forward with a couple of little cameos through the middle.
Did appear that way.
Yeah, 13 kicks, 9 handballs for 22, took 7 marks. Looked okay, but only kicked a goal up forward. 8 tackles, though, which was good. 4 clearances, so he did have a bit of a run through there. 8 contested possessions, went at 77.3 disposal efficiency, Macca. 9 score involvements, but only the 121 metres gained. So, yeah, Huey had almost a permanent forward role with, probably 5 minutes a quarter running through the mids.
Yeah, look, it's about Greeny still. I thought that I think he's when they're resting him up forward, it does give a little bit more steel up forward, even if he doesn't get the ball. It just gives a little bit more steel and contest. And when you put him on the ball, he will always get some of the ball because he dives in hard and it's interesting how he as soon as he gets the ball, he holds it up above his head, and they fall for it every time. Which always gives him the opportunity to dispose of it if he's tackled. So I think he's a valuable player. He may be one that's surplus to our requirements next year, and we may be trading him. I don't know, because we have these boys that are playing in the twos that we've drafted. They've got to be given a chance.
Yeah, Brent in the chat I agree 1,000% with you, Brent. Supporters are too attached to players. I agree. You've just sat there defending Brad Crouch. Why? Riley Knight is another. I love Riley Knight's heart and the passion that he plays with. I love Huey Greenwood. I think he's a fantastic inside player and he does some really good things. I couldn't give a rat's bum if we trade them, to be honest with you, because none of these players would give a rat's bum when they decide to leave. So I want a team that's actually going to win a flag, because I tell you what, Macca, after the capitulation since the bye that this club has shown after being in a good position, I'm not interested anymore in playing, happy families with the crowd favourites and with the spectator favourites. I would like us to be more ruthless. And these blokes...
Look, you're probably right, yep.
And these blokes like Knight and that, they've had their chance. Rory Atkins, they've had their chance. They blew it. They blew it in 2017. They couldn't back up in 2018. And they've been stinking it up half the time this year as well. So, see you later. Paul Seedsman. I don't know what's wrong with Paul Seedsman, but for a bloke who kicks it like he does, to only kick it 6 times in a game that we win by 95 points, there's something going on there. He doesn't look like he's quite right on his knee.
He has had 2 shit games on the trot, and I mean shit games.
Yeah.
He no influence and no contribution virtually at all to the game.
Doesn't look like he's moving freely to me.
No,
okay.
He doesn't deserve to be in the team on his last 2 at all.
Nope. Brody Smith, the experiment through the middle, I thought was okay. I don't think Smithers is a midfielder, to be honest with you. I think he's a wingman. 15
Even
and
move,
9.
I thought.
Well, they're looking for some outside run and they're looking to get him around the ball, Mac, but I just don't think he's a natural midfielder. I know he played juniors as a midfielder, but he's not agile enough for mine to be a midfielder. He's good in a straight line.
Put him on Atkins' wing, I'm happy with that.
Yep. I'd have Smith and Sloan on the wings, to be honest with you. 5 marks, 8 inside 50s, which is where we get value for Smith. But he's another one. Because of his kicking action, Macca, I reckon it's a bit of a crapshoot where his kick-ins go. And, he's one that doesn't put it to the advantage of the forwards terribly often, in my opinion.
Doesn't always think where it's going. There's no doubt about that. Sometimes he's just going for distance and not thinking about the end result.
Is that what you reckon, Nick?
Yeah, he can sometimes make, though, if it's that longer pass, really good. He struggles a little bit sometimes with those shorter ones.
Yes. It's because he's got that kicking style.
Yeah, because he does, and it's because he's made for those longer type of kicks. So if he's got it on the 50, have a ping, Brody. Just have a ping. Don't try for the shorter hit up one. I really like your idea of him on the wing. I thought the fact that Lynch is so integral to actually a decent delivery into our forwards and getting it from the half-back line to our forwards, that what we've had to try and manufacture and using him in those ways, we're trying something, it's not quite working, but it's not too bad. It's going to be very interesting if Lynch isn't ready for Essendon, how it'll go against them and their speed.
Well, it was an interesting comment that Rue made where Lynch himself doesn't know how long it's going to be now. So they reckon there's a bit of nerve issue as well as the muscle itself on the calf. So I don't reckon we'll see Tommy for a couple of weeks yet.
Yeah.
Well, it's gone for really 1 to 2 weeks was originally what was said to indefinite, really, because the comment you made is quite valid. I heard that particular comment and it seemed like they have no idea when he's going to be back.
Because if it's that nerve, it means the muscle could be okay, but he's feeling a pain, which it might kind of not be there, and so he can't trust what he's feeling as to whether that's truth or not coming out. And so in those instances, don't play him until that gets sorted.
Yep, I agree.
But we missed him. We miss him.
Yeah, speaking of blokes that we didn't miss, was there any reason we played David McKay? Surprisingly, 6 and 12 for 18. Look, I don't... another guy that I will never question D-Mac's endeavour, and he did a couple of nice things.
No, he was our relief for our backline because Smithers
I was very relieved.
Out there. Because Smithers and Miller are out there, so you've got to have that player who can swap with Brown and Kelly, etc., and give them a rest on the bench.
Yeah, if it wasn't for D-Mac, we wouldn't have won by 95 points. He was the difference. I mean, come on. come on. We've got a young lad in the twos, Shoal, who's been playing the lights out all season.
Yeah, I
This
really
is the
want to see
Gold
him.
Coast. Why did
It
we
would have
play?
been the perfect match. Yeah,
Why did we
perfect
play
match.
Benny Davis? Come on, we play him against the. We set him up for failure against the Cats. We drop him
Yeah.
against the Power, and then we take him on the road trip to bloody Gold Coast and don't play him. What the hell? Like, it's ridiculous. Really glad to see Tyson Stengel get a run. I thought he was pretty decent as a small forward. 10 disposals, kicked 3 goals, 1, which is what he's there for. 3 tackles.
He did a lot of really good movement up the ground.
Yep.
Even though he's small forward playing deep, but he's doing what I've seen in the SNFL with him. There were a couple of times where he kind of held back a little bit before he then tried to put the defensive pressure on, and so he just kind of missed that little bit. But I think that's that change in that, even though it was only Gold Coast, there still is that bit of a step up between SNFL and AFL.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but like
there's
we were saying
positive-
with Shoal, it was a good game to bring him in for, Nick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
completely.
he only kicked 3 goals, so you can bet your life that Dougie would be in next week, because Dougie would have shown some good form not playing for the SNFL. Eddie Betts did what Eddie should have done and kicked 6. Had 16 kicks, which was good. I thought he worked reasonably hard, Eddie, considering he didn't really have to. But he's another player that I need to show something in a tight game, only when it's 50% disposal efficiency, which was a bit disappointing. Of the rest, Lockie Murphy continues to underwhelm. Josh Jenkins did what he had to do, kicking 4. Kyle Hardigan, I thought, was very good down back. Talia didn't have much to do, and Tex looked like he could have had a game. He kicked 3, but probably didn't get it enough because it wasn't given to him enough.
I think that's a good summary, because he was doing very well at getting it when it was near him.
Yeah.
And so many times he just
missed him too often.
He made the space and just kicked it to nobody.
We just missed him far too often. Our entry. Now, Howard Gray on Facebook has said, CrowCast is fast becoming unlistenable, just knock, knock, knock. Well, 2 weeks ago, Howard, we got pummeled by Port Adelaide in a match that would have sent us into the top 4 had we won. How long further do you want to wait for this club to actually do something? How long further do you want to wait? So, no, this isn't a Crows podcast to slap the boys on the back. If you want to go and listen to one of those podcasts, feel free. But if you want some honest analysis from a group of supporters that actually want the club to succeed, then keep listening. It's up to you. So overall it was pretty underwhelming, but I guess that's all we could have expected from a game against Gold Coast. And really the question out of the game is, how long more can the AFL sustain Gold Coast playing the way that they are?
And I think it's a huge question, absolutely huge question, because their players are now at the stage, and look, despite my comment about Stuart before, I know that Stuart Dew can coach, and you could see the frustration in that poor guy's eyes when he was watching what was unfolding before his eyes. He said they got belted last week by Richmond and 80-something points off memory, and you would have thought on their home ground they would have made some effort to redeem it, and there was nothing. They think they're trying. Those lads think they're trying, but they're not trying.
I don't even think half of them do think that, Mac. The amount of skill errors was horrific, and that's, you could see half the time Dewey was just like, how do you account for that? I mean, these lads have gone through the system. They're all high draft picks. They train every week. Some of the uncontested skill errors were just horrific.
Yeah, and look, Brisbane were in a very, very poor shape at one particular stage. They put Noble in there. The AFL really seduced Noble off of the Crows to go up there and to put some backbone and structure behind the club. And they've got a coach that is an experienced coach and a man manager of people. Then their selection of what players to bring into the club. there's been a lot of thought and a lot of background put into that, and it's not just happened because of it's the fluke. There's been a lot of planning, a lot of work gone into that for that to happen. And whereas the Gold Coast, it seems to be just sitting there mouldering away and just getting worse and worse and worse. It's no point giving them a priority pick 1 or priority pick 2 because those kids will want to leave, and nobody would want to stay there as it is at the moment. So they've got 2 choices. They could either spend another complete fortune creating a proper structure for them that makes them much more desirable to stay at, or move it to Tasmania, where you've got the Tasmanian government has already said they'll put in money and to help support a team down there, and move it down there. And I think that would also strengthen Brisbane because they have a whole state behind them rather than being split. So I just think that it would be, if I was running the AFL, I would move the Gold Coast down to Tasmania.
As I said in the chat, though, the problem is they won't admit they made a mistake regarding Gold Coast.
That is the problem, Nikki. That is the problem.
Yeah, I
your
wouldn't.
Thoughts?
Well, I wouldn't move them. I'd just fold them. I don't think it would be fair to Tasmania to send that rebel down there. I would actually. No.
It needs a fresh start.
I mean, think about how negative that would be to Tasmania to send Gold Coast down there. Even if you need to scrap it and just, you might move the infrastructure down to Tasmania, but don't give it any association to the Gold Coast Suns because they are a rabble and they just need to be folded up. And look, the NRL have been able to do it with a couple of Gold Coast teams in the past, and I think the AFL need to have the courage to admit that it's not working. And it's not likely to work. I mean, can any of you... I actually thought last year Gold Coast were on the right track, and it's quite shocking to me that they've capitulated the way they have, and they weren't terrible last year, and they had a bit of talent, but it just shows you... I mean, they've lost a couple, but it just shows you that the players aren't invested up there. They're just not invested in the club.
Definitely not. And amongst that playing list there now, at the end of this season, there'll be another 2 or 3 that will want to move on from there. There's already talk of Martin wanting to move, and he's one of their quality players.
Yep.
So the future of them, I just think, is going to get worse and worse. And the trouble is, Mac, sorry to cut you off.
But the trouble is that we're dealing with young lads' careers, because 75% of those kids, they will stagnate on that list, and they probably don't deserve to, and they probably would have got some better development and some better opportunities at better run clubs. And so you're dealing with the young lads' careers, and I just don't think it's fair for them to be sent up to what really must be a bit of a rabble. And just to sit there and languish and hope that they get picked up by another club after their first contract.
I mean, how long have they been in there now? How many years is it?
6, isn't it?
I'll have to look it up. Hang on.
6 or 8.
Yeah,
it's long enough.
But it is long enough, and the Gold Coast is not one sporting team that's ever worked there. Not one of any kind, of any type. Doesn't matter what the denomination of the sport is. It
10.
just hasn't worked. Yeah, I thought it was 10 years. A decade.
2009.
I was going to say that, Nikki. I thought, no, that might be wrong. But it seems like it was for bloody ever. And they, if you draw a graph of them, they had a little rise originally, and then it's just a downhill slide, and it's just it's getting steeper and steeper and steeper, and there's no future.
No, I don't agree. I don't.
Just like correction. So they were given the license in 2009. They had 2 years to play, and they first started playing in 2011.
Yep, that sounds right. So 7 years on the deck, and they spent that 2 years trying to get Gary Ablett, basically.
No, this is their ninth playing year.
Anyway. They're crap, and that's a Tuesday Night Live discussion, which I'm sure we will have But in the meantime, before we wrap up proceedings here, Nikki, would you like to have a quick cockwomble, or would you like to leave it until Tuesday?
No, I'm not on Tuesday.
You're not on Tuesday?
No, I was supposed to be on this week, so it's a Macca week, even though.
Well, that's
unless you want me to swap and come on.
I don't really care. Do what you want. But let's have a cockwomble.
Definitely.
Underground, overground, wombling free.
Go for it, Nick.
All right. Umpire in the Hawthorn Fremantle game where Tom Scully throws his leg out, trips up a Fremantle player. No free kick is paid. Fremantle players question the decision, and the umpire says, it was accidental. So for that umpire, Rule 15.45, prohibited contact and payment of free kick. G to that is trips or attempts to trip an opposition player, whether by the use of hand, arm, foot, or leg. Doesn't matter if it's accidental or not.
It is.
That is stupid. That is stupid.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, utterly stupid. It was a free kick any day of the week. So I just thought with that one, because I just watched it at the time and heard him say that, and went, dude, you need to learn your rules. That's what you're actually out there for.
Well, Nikki, I'd like to nominate Ken Hinkley. And
Isn't this just a standing nomination?
Almost, but surely. I mean, 2 weeks ago, they were...
Macca?
He said they were untrustworthy.
Macca,
Yeah.
You get your sweet and smacks. And for the last 3 sweets and smacks, you have gone so hard at Port Adelaide. You're obsessed,
I
mate.
love it.
You're obsessed.
I am.
You're obsessed.
And back to the cock one.
No, because you say the same things every week. So until you get some new material on Port Adelaide...
But he doesn't say this every week.
But you've already said that. You've already said that.
Yeah, and on Tuesday night, you're going to have your sweets and smacks. You can do it there because I have the ultimate cockwomble, and it's a joint nomination for Damien Barrett and Kane Corns.
Oh, God.
Who, on the Sunday football show, decided to have a go at Pike and the rest of our coaching box, who were laughing during the last quarter.
Idiots.
And the reasoning behind it was because Stuart Dew, in his after-match press conference, actually said, because did you look the Adelaide box in that last quarter? You know, that stinks. Now, I watched... So Stuart Dew was in his after-match press conference, actually talked about, you know, and he was just saying the game, and he said to those journalists in the room, you know, you saw how... Basically saying you saw how relaxed the Adelaide coaching box was in the last quarter. That stings. Now, to me, and the way he said it and the context of it was that they were so relaxed coaching. They knew they didn't have that. It's not that they were laughing against whatever Gold Coast was doing.
Of course they weren't.
I know the moment they were actually laughing at it was Eddie's kind of mark from the miss kick, and it was just like, oh my God, you know, it's that kind of thing of everything's going our way. Now you have Damien Barrett who brought it up and then goes, oh, we don't know what the context of this is, but it's not good. Dude, you're supposed to be a journalist. One of the things you're supposed to do is find out what the context is, which showed that he didn't watch the game. And then you have Kane Corns trying to back him up on the Sunday footage going, Don Pike was laughing hysterically. That's not a hysterical laugh, Kane. That's a chuckle. I don't think he actually knows what humour is and how people actually react to humour. But the good thing was Tony Jones and pretty much everybody else in the panel pulled him up going, so we're not allowed to smile and laugh in a coaching box, and you don't know what they were laughing at, but you're going to have a go at them for something that you don't know what they were laughing at. So, yeah.
All right. Well, We can do that, Nick. That's fine.
I don't even know what it is. What is it?
I don't know. I think we give Nicky a call. Anyway, look, we're going to wrap it up. I can't believe that we've spent 1 hour and 35 minutes talking about the most ridiculous game of football that's been played this season, but apparently we can talk. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much to Ryan at Smith Partners Real Estate for his ongoing support. Thank you to Down to Earth Electrical as well, and Scorpus, aka Tim, at Hardware Unboxed, and also thanks obviously to all of our patrons on Patreon. If you want to follow the CrowCast and support us, go to patreon.com/AFL CrowCast or click the Patreon button at aflcrowcast.com. Guys, that was a struggle. The game was a struggle. We've got Essendon next week, which will be much more of a test for us. So join us on Tuesday Night Live as we preview that game a little bit with Peter and Donkey as well. Thank you, Nicky. Thank you, Macca.
Yes, I'll see you Tuesday night.
And thanks, everyone, for joining us on the chat. See you guys.
Night all.